Hello, welcome back. My name is Ari and today is day one of the Blackathon vlog week. So, I am going to do like a week-long vlog, so this will probably be a little bit longer instead of doing like the daily vlogs, just because I don't have time to like edit daily, and also I work full-time, 40 plus hours a week, and a lot of days that I'm going to work are going to be very, very boring vlog days. So, week-long vlog, let's get some content in here. So, each day has a prompt. I am not going to do all of them, honestly. Some of them I don't feel comfortable doing because either they're about like cosplay and art, which I don't really do, or I'm a little bit iffy about the cultural appropriation, so decide not to do them, but we'll get to those as we get to those. Today's prompt is something that I am going to do, and it is anticipated releases by Black authors. My number one, let me actually scoot over so I can put covers up over here. My number one anticipated release by a Black author this year is Saarland by Rivers Solomon. I read a book last year by Rivers Solomon. It was about outer space. For some reason I can't remember the title because I'm really bad with names, but it was really, really good. And I liked it a lot. The cover was probably already here already. So I'm excited to read more by Rivers Solomon just to see if all of their books are that fantastic. There are a couple of other books that sound kind of interesting. My level for like anticipated reads are usually like authors I've read like a bajillion books for, or at least like one really good book for. But that's not really what an anticipated read is. It's more of like, hey, this sounds kind of interesting. I'm anticipating reading it. So I kind of looked through some different lists of books coming out this year, and a couple stood out to me as interesting sounding. There is a book called How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Sherry Jones. I do have a arc of this through Libro FM, and the title just, I mean, obviously the cover is gorgeous. The title just stands out as something like, what is this about? I don't really know what this is about, but I want to read it. I'm intrigued. The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna? Namina Forna? I don't know if I'm saying her name right. It's very hard to read this text that I have. This one I'm on the fence about. I want to see what other people think of it before I pick it up, because it has had a whole lot of like advertising behind it, and unfortunately a lot of times with those books that just have like tons and tons of like advertising behind it, they're not always great. So I'm waiting for some other people to read it and to give me reviews on it before I pick it up. Actually this is not the same. The Conductors is another book that's similar to that, which I do have an arc of this because I think everybody and their mom got a NetGalley arc of this. This was advertised on NetGalley so much for like over a year now, and I did pick up a NetGalley arc. I will be reading it by the end of this month, probably not in this vlog, but before the end of this month. And the few people I have heard talk about it say that it's not as good as it was pitched. So that like over advertising is kind of putting me off on books. I would rather see like honest reviews from readers than just companies like over advertising. Like I understand the need to advertise because you want the books to stand out. I'm just not really taking book recommendations anymore off of advertisements. I would rather see them from people who've actually read the books. Another book that I've seen around booktube a little bit is Muted, and this is a gorgeous cover. Guys, look at this cover. I, again, don't know what this is about. This is gonna be a trend for me. I don't know what it's about, but I've heard some YouTubers that I follow talk about this and say that it's supposed to be good. So I'm interested. Like, that's one of the things, is I don't actually care what books are about, but if other people tell me they're good, I'm like, sure, I'm gonna read that. That sounds great. Look at the cover. I totally shop books by covers. Another one that I've heard nothing but great things about the author is Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark. I still want to read Ring Shout, so looking forward to this one a lot. And again, do you see this cover? And I'm sure there are others, but those are the ones that jump out to me the most as things that I'm interested in. So I don't need the cover over there anymore, so I could be in the center of the frame again. Hi. So about what I am reading this week, I have not started any of my Blackathon books that I plan to read for this month, but I've been reading tons of books by Black authors, just nothing on my Blackathon TBR. So I'm going to try to fit as much of my Blackathon TBR as I can into this week, into this vlog. I may read a couple of them next week, but I've got like a small handful of books that I need to finish before the end of the month, because they're part of like reading plans or their arcs that come out in early March. So I'm gonna say the majority of my Blackathon reads will probably be this week. So the first thing, I'm just gonna go in order of them. So right now I'm going to start with The Space Between Worlds by Micah Johnson. This is a sci-fi about traveling between different, like, what is the word for that? I know there's a word for it. They said multiverse. So I guess that's like the Marvel term for it, but it's like, it's the same reality that we have, except for if people made like a different life decision, and then so like the universe splits off into another reality. Travel between these multiverses is allowed in, there's the ability to do it, but only if you in that world has been killed. Or, I'm sorry, only if the you in that world is dead. And the character the character that this follows is dead in almost all of the multiverses that they have access to, and I think there's a lot of commentary on like Black lives in this book and how she is dead in a lot of worlds because of the treatment and the conditions that Black women are put into. And there's also a sapphic romance, if I remember correctly. So I'm super excited. Just saying, I'm super excited, but I will be back once I finish this book. Hello, I am finished and it's still Saturday. So don't judge me about wearing the same clothes. It's still the same day, I can wear the same thing. So this is fantastic. This was a really, really amazing book. It is basically about what I told you earlier, where a girl is hired to travel between worlds because she is mostly dead in them. There are, I wrote this down because I have a bad memory. There are 380 worlds that are close enough to Earth 0 to travel to. So there's infinite amount of worlds, but you have to set your frequency right to travel to it, and there's only 380 out of infinite worlds where it's possible to reach because of the similarities are near enough. Out of those 380 worlds, she's dead in 373 of them. So she has lived a hard life, if you can't tell. Why is she dead in all of these worlds, even though they're so similar to hers? Well, there's a lot of factors that lead to her death. So first, she was born to a drug-addicted prostitute. So a lot of her other selves died as infants due to like underdeveloped lungs or an underdeveloped brain or something like that. If she did make it to childhood, then oftentimes her mother's neglect because of her drug problem, she would be locked away or forgotten, starved to death, and so many of her other selves died that way. She's from a place called Ashtown, and it was ruled in her childhood by a warlord, basically, and he had an army, we're gonna call it, of runners. And these runners would basically had these like souped up vehicles, and they would drive through the streets murdering people. So often she was murdered by the runners. If somehow between her mother's drug abuse and neglect and the runners she managed to survive to like her teenage years or adulthood, she turned to prostitution, because that was one of the very few acceptable careers for her. Prostitution is not frowned upon in this universe as it is in ours, so don't think of it as like a lower, like a negative thing that she was a prostitute. That was a good thing. She just wasn't very good at it. But she is kind of good at manipulating people, so she ended up being the consort, I guess, to the new warlord, which is the son of the previous warlord. He was still cruel, but not cruel like his father, and he beat her a lot. So often if she made it to adulthood, she died at his hands. And that's kind of why she's dead in so many different places. This book makes really interesting connections between the place where she grew up, which is Ashtown, versus Wiley City, which is a wealthy industrial complex that Ashtown was built in the shadow of. So no one is poor. Like, if you're a citizen, you have like all of the privileges. You're never going to starve. You'll always be treated well. And seeing like the difference between how she grew up and how these other people live is like definitely commentary. And her goal with taking this job is if she's employed for so long, then she'll gain permanent citizenship and she never has to worry about being starved or beaten again. So that's a background commentary. Another commentary that you get is like the interwoven lives of people, where maybe all of these universes exist because people make different choices, which leads to a change. Like, one universe is created from one choice and another universe is created from another. And it's very interesting to see how all of these people are connected in the same ways, in like circulating ways. So even though like maybe somebody met somebody and fell in love at one point in one world, there's a good chance that they're going to meet somebody and fall in love in another world, or somebody you're attracted to in one world is going to be attracted to your doppelganger in multiple worlds. And it was really interesting to read that. The plot of this story did not go anywhere where I expected it to, so I was glad for like all of like the shocks and surprises that I kept getting throughout. Some of them, like in hindsight, were probably a little bit more predictable, but I still really enjoyed it, and it wasn't so obvious and predictable that I predicted it. So if you were interested in sci-fi, I highly recommend this. This was fantastic, great, I loved it. The prompt for that book was Travels the Spirit Realm or Spiritualism. And actually, there was a whole lot more spirit realm and spiritualism in that book than I thought there was going in, because I thought it was just pure science, but there is like a spiritualism, like religious aspect to it. So that fits the prompt better than I thought it did. So yay. Next up, I am reading Riot Baby by Tochi Amnobuchi. Very excited about this, even though I have no idea what it's about. None at all. I know it's science fiction, and I know a ton of people recommend it. So I guess I'm gonna find out, aren't I? This one is for an alien civilization or alien tech, so apparently it has something to do with aliens. I guess I'll find out. See you in the next clip. Okay, still same day. I am finished with Riot Baby. And this was for the alien tech prompt. And I didn't see any alien tech in that book. There was like very futuristic tech that I guess could have come from aliens, and I'm just confused because let me tell you, I am very confused by this story. So the base story is about two siblings, Ella and Kevin. And Kevin was born on April 26, 1992 in Los Angeles. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the significance of that event, there was major riots in Los Angeles on April 26, 1992 because Rodney King had been beaten by police, and that was filmed and the police were acquitted. I bet that sounds familiar to you, not necessarily because you know about that, because it happens a disturbing amount, which is gross. He is known as Riot Baby because he was born during a riot. Most of the book is about gang violence, police violence. Kevin is arrested and put in prison for the crime of being black. He spends so much time in prison without bail, without a trial. It's all like realistic, but still disgusting. Kevin and his sister Ella also have like superpowers. This is the best way I can describe them. They can basically do anything. Ella specifically. Kevin doesn't really have the control over his powers that Ella does, but she can like teleport, she can blow up things with her brain, she can fly, she can see the past, see the future. And it's really about black rage. And her and Kevin like controlling themselves and not fighting back, but still coming to the conclusion that being kind is not going to change anything, that action needs to be taken. There's also like there is some futuristic technology. Like this all takes place seemingly in modern times. But there's definitely like the magic and technology that doesn't exist in modern times. A lot of events that are like real events are mentioned and happen in the story, like the Charleston shooting of the church is brought up quite a few times. But then like Kevin gets released and he's a parolee, but he has like a microchip injected into his thumb, and that chip can like monitor him like physically. It can monitor his blood. He doesn't have to take drug tests because it'll know if he's done drugs. It will like inject chemicals into his brain to keep him docile, and it can like unlock his door. So that's obviously like tech that doesn't exist. There's also like a tech that is grafted onto like police officers' bones so they could murder black men with no consequences. Like I said, I'm very confused about like the technical and magical side of this, but the rest of it is like, it's moving. I can't say it's good because there is nothing good about the events that happen in this book. All of it's like hugely depressing, and should make anybody angry, no matter what the color of your skin is. But it was definitely well written, definitely moving. But I think the sci-fi twist on it just threw me off more than anything. So, I don't know. I gave this a 3 stars, mostly just out of sheer confusion. I don't know that I have any more to say. It's something that is definitely worth the read, especially considering how short it is. It's like 170 pages. So definitely something worth the read. But I don't know that I liked the fantasy sci-fi aspects to it. I think maybe for this story, Angie Thomas might be a better way to go. Her books, but I also don't think you shouldn't read this because of the confusion of it, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. Let's move on to my next book. So this is the last book that I'm 100% for sure reading for the sci-fi section. I'm putting all of the group books at the very end because none of those were things that I was like really looking forward to reading. So if I have time at the end of the week, those 3 will be the last 3 I read. But I'm getting through the other 12 first, if possible. But the next one, I may end up getting through 3 books today because the next one is Kindred, but Kindred the graphic novel. And I've never read Kindred, but from what I understand this story is a black woman is transported back in time to the time of slavery. And that's all I really know. I think she's supposed to like help a white man. I don't know. I will let you know what it's about once I get back. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this in a graphic novel form. The artwork in here is gorgeous. So yeah, I'll be back in a little bit talking about Kindred. Hello. I figured we could use a little bit of change of scenery today. It's Saturday. No, it's Sunday. Days are blurring. It's Sunday. Happy Valentine's Day. It's not Valentine's Day for you, but it's Valentine's Day for me, so happy Valentine's Day. This is my TBR shelf. I never record in front of this, but this is where I keep all of my TBR books. So, it's also very low to the ground. It's a tiny little baby shelf. So I finished Kindred, the graphic novel. How do I break this down? First, the artwork. The artwork in here is amazing. It's so like, it's like a sketchy style, but you could still see like the emotion and the fear and everything in the sketchy style, and I really enjoyed it. I don't know if it's going to be artwork for everybody, but for me, thumbs up. The story itself, so basically what it is a black woman in the 70s is just pulled back in time. We never really figure out how, but we do figure out the why. Basically, one of her ancestors is a white slave owner in Maryland, I think is where he was from. I'm a little off on the exact location. But he's a white slave owner, and he obviously raped one of his slaves and then started our female main character's line. And he is a shitty man, an accident-prone child, and every time he's about to die, she gets pulled into the past and has to save him, and she only gets to go home when she's about to die. And so years and years of time will pass in the past, while only like a handful of days will pass in present time. And she'll get pulled into the past, have to stay months, years, whatever, and then show back up in modern times, and she'll only be gone like a day or two. But then like the opposite things happen, where if like her husband gets pulled in with her one time, and he's a white man, and she goes back to the present, and it's only been like 3 or 4 days. And then by the time but he gets stuck in the past during that 3 or 4 days that she's back in the present. And by the time she comes back, it's been like 5 years. This young boy, Rufus, that is her ancestor. Well, he starts out young. He's an adult by the end of it. He is a horrible man. Like, there's no getting around it. And he's selfish. He's entitled. And he's exactly what you would expect out of a slave owner. But she keeps having to save him because she wouldn't exist if he doesn't have children, right? It's a powerful told message throughout. I think the book itself will probably be better, and I don't know that you should let your children read this. This is definitely for an older audience. Maybe if you have teenagers who don't really like reading, this would be a good alternative to having them just read the novel Kindred. Get them the graphic novel where they can learn something, but they're not, they get to look at pictures, because everybody likes looking at pictures, right? But as far as like an adult level go, like if you like graphic novels, I think this is a really great presentation for it. I think for me, I would have probably preferred this in novel form and not the graphic novel form. Even though I really enjoyed this graphic novel, I will still eventually get around to reading Kindred in a novel, and then I think I'll have a better recommendation for you. So this is good, but I don't feel any desire to like stop with this one. I think I want to read the novel and see what I can get out of that and what the graphic novel might leave out. If that makes sense? I don't know. Because it is day 2, we have another prompt for today, and today's prompt is a book by a Black author that you'd like to see made into an adaptation, like a film or TV adaptation. So my initial thought for this, as far as like cool adaptations go, is like an HBO really over-sexualized style of Black Leopard Red Wolf. I think this is a fantasy book by Marlon James, and it is dark. There are a lot of graphic scenes in here, I guess is the best way to put it. There's a lot of trigger warnings. How about we go with that? And this is the first book in a trilogy, so maybe wait until like the whole series is out. But I do think that this would make a really cool, like, for adult eyes only type of show. A little bit on the lighter side, just reading this yesterday, like reading it, I thought this would make a really cool like movie adaptation, probably more in a CGI style or maybe like a cartoon style. I don't think technology is good enough to do something live action with this story. I mean, I guess it could, but I think this would look better in like a graphic, cartoony form. Just because you could do so much more with it if you're drawing it than having to do all CGI. Or like one of those CGIs like, what is that show called? The Battle Angel? Something Battle Angel? Where it's like live action animated kind. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but let's pretend like we know what I'm talking about. I think that would do a great adaptation of that way. Those are really the only two recommendations I have. I don't watch television or movies at all. So, with the completion of Kindred, I am going into the next category, the next group. I don't know what this is called. I am so bad with words today. We're gonna say the next phase. We're gonna go with the next phase of my Blackathon reading, and that is the fiction, nonfiction, contemporary category, and the first book in that is going to be The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This is one of those books that I have been looking forward to reading for a long time. I've heard absolutely nothing but good things about this, and from my understanding, it's about two twin sisters who are very, very light-skinned black women, and both of them can pass for white women, and they grew up in a town of black people who are all passing as white. And into their adulthood, they kind of go in different directions in life. One of the girls passes as a white woman, marries a white man, and has a daughter. The other twin marries a very, very dark-skinned black man and has a daughter, and obviously doesn't try to pass at all. And then their daughters come together and meet, and then I guess probably the girl who thinks she's white finds out that she's not white. So that I will check back in with you once I'm done with this. It's like early in the morning. It's like 11. That's not really early. It's early for me on a Sunday. Stop judging me. I see you judging me. It's early for me. So I will definitely get through this book today, no problem. It's not that long. And I may be able to finish a second book or at least start the next book. So you'll see me a couple of times today. Hello, I am not feeling great today, so I've not gotten a whole lot of reading done. But I did finish The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and you know what? This is a really fantastic book, honestly. Everybody talking about like how great this is was right. Like, it deserves a lot of these awards. It's kind of hard to talk about without like spoilers because there's just so many like amazing plot twists and turns and stuff like that throughout the book. But basically what it's about is there's these two twin sisters who were born in a town that's full of light-skinned black people in like the 60s, 50s, 1950s, 1960s. And so when they get older, they run away from home, like 16. They run away from home and go to New Orleans, and they split up after that. And one sister marries a very, very, very dark-skinned black man, and the other sister passes as a white woman and marries a white man. And then it follows like their daughters' lives with like flashbacks to their life after that point. The character development in this is one of like the best things that I've ever read. The characters are so like well fleshed out and interesting, even if not likable. And I like really, really enjoyed this. I gave it 4 stars because the one thing that I didn't like about it was the ending. Like, it's an open ending, and I'm all for open endings. I just didn't like this particular ending. Next, I'm gonna put the cover over here because it's an ebook. I am reading The Sorcerers of the Wild Deep, I think is what it's called. I'm not sure if it has the in there or not, but we'll go with it. Whatever the cover says, by Kai Ashanti Wilson, I believe is the author's name. This is my cheat book because even though it fits the prompt, it doesn't fit the genre of the prompt. And the prompt is... what was the prompt? Like, queer characters on a road trip, I believe. That sounds about right. But yes, this is definitely about queer characters on a road trip. It's fantasy. And not fiction, not general fiction, nonfiction, or contemporary. But this is the book that I own. So I'm reading this for this prompt, even though it's fantasy, instead of buying something new. So I will check back in when I'm done with this book. It'll probably be tomorrow because I think I'm just gonna go to sleep because I don't feel good. So, hello, it is Monday. It's also President's Day, so I don't have to work today. My hair's a little special. It's fine. I finished Sorcerer of the Wild Deeps, and I'm gonna be like real quick with this wrap up because my neighbors are doing construction and I'm afraid the power tools are gonna start again. So I didn't really care for this book, and there's a couple of reasons. First off, it's fantasy and it's set in a fantastical world that is very similar to what I would like picture as North Africa. Like, it's the edge of a desert into like a lush jungle greenery. All of the characters are men. They're POC men. Most of them are black, but not all of them, so definitely POC and not just black men. And this is the kind of story that just drops you into this world. Like, you don't understand the magic system, like the nationalities or anything like that. It like kind of explains some of it as time goes on, but then it kind of doesn't explain a lot of it. So all throughout it's very, very confusing, especially with like, or anything that doesn't belong in like our world, which is most of the book, sadly. I hear the power tools, so I'm sorry. They're not too loud right now, but they might get louder. So we follow the sorcerer, or we follow a group of mercenaries, I guess, caravan guards, that's a good word for it. And from the perspective of the sorcerer, and he is mostly the like healer of the group, but he's also the second best fighter, the best fighter being the captain. And these two men are really good fighters because they are the descendants of gods. So you've got all of these different gods who in this nation, area, place, not like where the book takes place, but somewhere else in this world, built towers and then had offspring with humans. And generations ago, all of the gods like descended back into the or ascended back into the cosmos and left their offspring to live, do whatever it is they were doing. And depending on who your parent god is, you have like different abilities. And both the captain and the sorcerer are descendant of these gods. You don't really understand, like, the details of that are not explained. This is just kind of what I'm getting from like the little bits I get in the story. So, but that's why they're super powerful. Everybody else is either human or their blood's so diluted they don't have any like special powers. I do know the sorcerer has... It's very confusing. He's got a third eye, and he can cry tears from the third eye while also somehow like splitting his tongue in half and then licking wounds, and that heals them. It's weird. And then the captain can like spit in things and it heals them. And neither one of them are descended from like fighter gods. They're both from healer gods, which kind of shows how good of warriors they are if they're just so much better than humans when they're not even supposed to be like warrior descendants. The captain and the sorcerer are also lovers, but it's secret because homosexuality is frowned upon in this universe. So you do have gay rep. The writing is very like lyrical and lovely. It's beautiful, except for when you get to the dialogue, which is just so jarring that I didn't like it. All of the dialogue is written in like a Southern American vernacular, where there is liberal use of the N-word without the hard R, and use of words like y'all, warsh, and having this like lyrical prose with these like just magical words that feel like so out of place in a normal everyday conversation, and then just drop in everyday conversation. And I'm not saying the prose is problematic, or I'm not saying the writing is problematic because of use of the vernacular. It's just the off-putting of a very non-modern setting with a very modern speech style, but only when people are talking. You don't get the modern day ways of talking in the descriptive prose. So I did not like that at all. And when I say non-modern, I mean like this universe, they're caravan guards. There's no vehicles, no guns, nothing like that. They're either walking, riding a camel, riding a mule. They live out of tents, like canvas cloth tents, not like modern day tents like we have. There's no vehicles. They all use spears to fight, maybe a sword, but a spear is the most normal way to do it. And then like magic. There's no such thing as like electricity or any modern conveniences, but all of the dialogue language is very modern. At least an American modern. And then the setting is obviously not an American setting either, which makes it so like jarringly different. But between like the jarring usage of language and just the straight up confusion of everything going on in the book, I didn't particularly care for it, so I'm giving it a 3-star. And I'm going to move on before the noise gets any worse. The next book that I'm reading is a nonfiction book called Black Madness, Mad Blackness. And I forgot what the prompt for this was. So this is for the prompt disabled character or author. And it's talking about mental health and madness or insanity or there's so many other words that can be used right now, found in Black people, and then how white people will label Black people as different kinds of mad, like insane mad, to like as a form of punishment to like make Black people seem lesser. So that's what this is about. It's fairly short. Yeah, it's 113 pages, so it shouldn't take very long, but there's some really cool artwork in here. But yeah, I'm gonna read this. I will come check in with you later. Okay, I have to stop in here really quick and talk about this book again. I was a little off on what this is about. This is an academic essay on the intersectional... It's way too hard to say. This is an academic essay on the intersectionality of race and disability. So with this being an academic essay, I can't consume this in the same way as I would like a fictional narrative. So for something like this, I need to read it very slowly, let my mind like take time to wrap around like each thing that I read. And I usually, for things like this, I will split into chapters and read a chapter a day, which is what I'm going to do with this. I think this is only like 4 or 5 chapters long. But I did just finish reading the introduction and then realized that I was wrong, that it's about mental health, which there is mental health in here. Like parts of it are about mental health, but it's mostly about just disabilities in general. And yeah, so moving on from this for now, I need to find a bookmark for that. I'm going to go ahead and start When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, which is a thriller. Apparently Alyssa Cole, I have a book plate that she signed. Anyway, this is a thriller about gentrification, I believe, in New York. So I am going to read this preferably before it gets dark so I don't scare the shit out of myself. And I will come back and check in on with you with this one. This one is New to Town Old Secret, I think is the prompt that I am reading for this, which I'm stretching a little bit because one of the main characters is brand new to town. And his secret's not an old secret, at least as far as I know, because I haven't read the book yet. But the secret of, like, the gentrification, probably the not so nice, creepy, thriller-ish secret behind the gentrification is the old secret. Hello, it is Monday. I know I need a different angle and I know my hair looks awful. I washed it last night and then put it up and yeah, I didn't brush it or anything. Anyway, it's Tuesday morning. I'm about to go to work and I wanted to talk really quick about When No One Is Watching before I go to work. So this is a thriller by Alyssa Cole. I just read it for the New Town Old Secret, which does actually apply better to this book than I thought it would. This is about a neighborhood in Brooklyn that is getting gentrified, but the gentrification is a whole hell of a lot creepier than normal gentrification. I mean, normal gentrification is bad. This is creepy. I have seen a lot of reviews of this book where people are saying it's not really a thriller, the pacing's really slow, it's more of a horror, the plot twists aren't really plot twists, they're very easy to predict. I disagree with everything but the last one, which I'll get to. This is definitely a thriller. It's got horror aspects, but it's definitely a thriller. I don't think the pacing is off. I think there's a lot of buildup in it where it's like, holy shit, that's creepy. Like, no, 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 this is creepy. What's going on? Is the narrator reliable? And like questioning throughout, like I was great with the pacing of this book. And then for the fact that because there's no like extensive plot twist or unpredictable plot twist, that doesn't make it a thriller. No. The fact that you can predict these things that are happening, and the fact that it's so easy to imagine these things happening to Black people in real life is what makes this like horrifying. That's what makes this like so scary. This is honestly the scariest book that I have ever read in my entire life, only for the fact that it is so easy to see this happening in real life and absolutely nothing being done about it in our legal system. So I very, very much enjoyed this. This got a 5 stars from me. I want more thrillers like this. If you know more thrillers like this, tell me, please. Alyssa Cole, for those of you who aren't familiar with the author, is a romance writer. So unfortunately, I hate contemporary romance, so I don't want to ruin my joy of Alyssa Cole by reading the rest of her oeuvre, because I know I don't like contemporary romance. But if you like contemporary romance and maybe don't like thrillers, maybe pick up something by Alyssa Cole, because I hear her romance is really good if you like romance. Hello, quick update. I am recording a lot right now, which is why the makeup is happening. I am about to start The House of Dies Dreer, which is, from my understanding, a young adult horror novel written in the 1960s by Virginia Hamilton. This is about a haunted house on the Underground Railroad. So, sounds very interesting. The reviews are hit and miss, so I'm not entirely sure, but it is young adult and it's fairly short, so I am not super worried about it. I still need to do my prompt for yesterday and my vlog prompt for today, which I will do later. I just wanted to stop in and talk about that while I was recording, and because I want to do like a little unboxing that's not book related at all. I'm sure you have noticed my huge eyelashes that I have on today. One of my friends came up with her own makeup line, and these are one of the lashes in the line, so that's why I'm wearing them. And I want to take them off because they're big and they're poking me, but I wanted to talk about them in her makeup line in this vlog. This is Darling Doll Cosmetics, and I have these lashes, which are the ones that I have on, and then I have these lashes, which are a little bit tamer than the ones that I have on, but they're still really big and pretty. So if you are interested in checking out a makeup line, she has more than just eyelashes. She's got eyeshadow palettes and like lip glosses and stuff like that. I just picked up the eyelashes because the eyeshadow palettes weren't really my particular color scheme, which is like shockingly bright colors. But I will link her store down in the description if you are interested at all in supporting one of my friends. I've toned down the makeup a little bit and I have food. So today's, or yesterday's, we're gonna pretend like it's today's, yesterday's prompt was to eat food that has somehow associated with Black culture. And when I was in college, I had a roommate whose family was from Ethiopia, and holy shit, do I love Ethiopian food. And I'm gonna pause right there and say, if you just made some joke to yourself about there's no food in Ethiopia because we grew up with like starving children in Ethiopia on the television all the time, you're kind of racist and you need to, like, get a hold of yourself, okay? I'm relying on you to adjust your own racism right there and the thoughts in your brain. Anyway, I ordered Ethiopian food. The restaurant that I normally order from, it was closed today. I guess they're just closed on Tuesdays. So I had to try a new restaurant that I've never tried before, but I ordered the same dish that I always try. And I'm going to show it to you, but I do not want you to judge this food based on the look of the food, because it doesn't look like super particularly appetizing, but it's amazing. And so this is like a lamb and spices and onions and stuff like that. The one I normally get is a little bit more yellow than this normally, and it's a little bit more liquidy, but I'm sure this will taste just as good. So it comes with this bread up here, and this, I don't know what it's called, but it is like a super sour bread, and I love sour food. And basically how you eat this is you just like pull off a piece of bread, and then you grab a bit of your food inside the bread and then eat it with your fingers. It's so good. Hello, I am back, and I am going to do the Black trivia quiz. Forgive me if I bomb this. I've got test anxiety. Let me screen record this so I can put it up here on the screen while I am taking this test. So before I take this quiz, I'm going to let you know that there's a very, very large chance that I'm going to fail this. And basically my thought process here is it's okay that I'm wrong. So anything that I get wrong, it gives me a starting point to where I know I need to get more research into that particular subject of Black lives. So do not judge me if I'm wrong. That just means that I know where I need more room for learning. So the trivia questions from the Black diaspora. Harriet Tubman had respiratory problems, cystic fibrosis, narcolepsy, or epilepsy. I didn't know that Harriet Tubman had any sort of disability, so I'm gonna just guess cystic fibrosis. I don't know if this is right or not. Next, Dr. Henry Lowe, the creator of a cure for prostate cancer, hails from what country? I, again, don't know. Kenya, Ghana, Jamaica, and U.S. Virgin Islands. This is gonna be a random guess, but I'm gonna say Jamaica. I really don't know if that's true or not. Who was the first Black African to win a gold medal in the Olympics? I don't know anything about sports, so there was a high chance that I wouldn't have known this anyway, depending on, regardless of skin color. I'm just gonna guess the first person. I can't pronounce that name either. Gladys Bentley from 1907 to 1960 was a gender-bending blues performer during the Harlem Renaissance. What was Gladys's stage name? I don't really know much about jazz. It's not, or I don't really know much about blues. It's not my music genre of choice. So again, I don't know anything. I feel like Jon Snow. Let's say Jerry Jackson, because that's a cool name. Limbo dancing originated in which of the following locations? That was Trinidad and Tobago, right? That could be really wrong, but I feel like I actually might know that answer. I guess we're gonna find out. The 1986 Nobel Prize in Literature went to which Nigerian playwright and poet? 86. I don't know. I don't keep up with Nobel Prizes, honestly. Random guess. Which infamous actor was once on the FBI watch list for their activism? James Earl Jones. Who is the first black actor to win an Academy Award? It was Hayley McDaniel, wasn't it? That's probably wrong. I'm just gonna assume that I'm wrong about everything. Who was famous sculptor during the Harlem's Renaissance? I don't know anything about sculptors at all. Aaron Douglas, sure. And who was the first black astronaut? I also don't know anything about astronauts. I feel like this is a bit unfair because I don't know anything about, like, these general subjects, much less, like, period. Not anything to do with the black people in these subjects, but just period. Let's go with Frederick Gregory. Let's see how bad I did. View score. So Harriet Tubman had epilepsy. Today I learned. Dr. Henry Lowe was from Jamaica, so I was correct. I can't pronounce this person's name, but you see it on screen as the first black African to win a gold medal in the Olympics. Bobby Minton was Gladys Bentley's stage name. Cool. Trinidad and Tobago. See, the one that I thought I knew, I actually knew. I'm so proud of myself. Again, I cannot pronounce this name, and I don't want to try to butcher it, but that was the 1986 Nobel Prize in Literature. Then Samuel L. Jackson apparently was on an FBI watch list. Today I learned. I was right about the first black actor to win an Academy Award. I don't know why I knew that, but I felt like I was right. Again, I don't know anything about sculpting, so that was Augustus Savage. And then the first black astronaut was, I can't pronounce names, so it's on the screen. So there's that. I bombed that test. There is another one that I can take that's about authors, but I feel like I know less about black authors than I know about, like, general information. So let's just watch me bomb another test. Take 2, black authors. What was Toni Morrison's first novel? It was The Bluest Eye, wasn't it? Which I think that's correct because I was considering reading it earlier, but I think that was her first novel. I could be completely wrong. Which Kenyan author became the first African woman to receive a Nobel Peace Prize? I don't know. Let's go with Grace. Who is the best-selling black author? I mean, I wish it was A.M.G. Thomas, but I don't think it is. I think it's Zane. Zane writes, I mean, Oprah makes sense, right? I feel like this is a trick question, because Oprah is not somebody I would consider an author, but she's the most popular person on here. Angie Thomas writes really, really powerful novels. Zane writes a lot of erotica, I think. So I'm gonna guess Zane and kind of hope that I'm wrong. But maybe it's Oprah Winfrey because she's just generally famous. So if it's Oprah, then I just feel like I have been tricked into not picking Oprah because I don't consider Oprah, like, if I'm thinking like Oprah's career, writer is not the first thing that I would think of. Michael B. Jordan acquired the rights to adapt which book? Ooh, I don't know. I don't know, but I want to hope that it's Black Leopard, Red Wolf, because I'll be so excited. I don't think that's correct, but that's what I'm writing in. Who is the only novelist to win a Hugo Award 3 years in a row? N.K. Jemisin, I'm gonna say. Which actor authored a graphic novel? Huh, I don't know. Zoe Kravitz? That would be cool. I don't think that's right. But that would be really cool. I would read that. What is the father named in Things Fall Apart? I've never read Things Fall Apart, so I don't know. So I'm literally just going to guess. Author Francis Clemens is best known as the first Black man to score a role in a recurring children's sitcom. Which was it? Wasn't that Mr. Rogers as the cop? Which company did best-selling authors Tomi Adeyemi study in? I don't know. Let's say Nigeria. In which 2021 release features an African tightrope walker, secret societies, and a gladiator? A gladiatorial tournament. I don't know, but now I want to read this. I really don't know. Let's say Blood Like Magic, because I have no idea. But whatever it is, it's going on my TBR. Let's view the score. It's gonna be bad. 6 out of 10. That's not as bad as I thought it was gonna be. It wasn't as bad as the other one. Toni Morrison's first novel was The Bluest Eye. Okay, I'm like talking myself out of things. The Kenyan author that became the first American to, or the first African woman to receive a Nobel Peace Prize, I have no idea. Completely no idea. Best-selling Black author, Zane. I was right. I'm so proud of myself for knowing that. And then, Michael B. Jordan is gonna adapt Black Leopard Rebel. I'm so excited. Yes. N.K. Jemisin, I was right for the novelist to win a Hugo Award 3 years in a row. Amanda Steinberg authored a graphic novel. Didn't know that. Today I learned. The Fathers, that one was a random guess and I just got it right. So there you go. I was right about Mr. Rogers. I'm proud of me. Tomi Adeyemi studied in Brazil. Did not know that. Again, I learned. And then Bones of Ruin is going on my TBR, and I'm going to cut this here because this card is literally full and I have no empty cards. I need to edit some videos. So check back in later. Hi, how are you? I have like nothing for you today. So basically I'm in the middle of 2 books, so I have nothing to talk about, and I'm not doing today's prompt because it's about cosplay, and A, I don't cosplay, B, it's too easy for me to accidentally culturally appropriate something, even though I don't mean to. So today's update is basically non-existent. But I know you want content, so I have a box. Guess what's in the box? I bought a lot of Girl Scout cookies and now I'm gonna go eat them all. Hello, it is Thursday. The rest of the clips you're going to see will probably be really quick because I am not doing any of the remaining prompts. They're just not for me. I think my hair looks really weird. Whatever, who cares? No one cares what your hair looks like, Ari. Thank you. So the rest of the prompts aren't for me. I just either don't have interest in doing them or yeah, I think I just don't have interest in doing them. Which it doesn't matter. So what is left that you are going to see is just going to be hopefully quick little book wrap-ups of the last three. We all know that I can't count, but we'll go with 3 books that I need to read. I did finish The House of Dyes Dreer, and I did not like this at all. I don't know if this was like too young for my personal taste and that's why I didn't like it, or if it was just like really off as a book. This is probably, I would consider this middle grade and not even young adult, but like middle grade. And it's supposed to be about a haunted house on the Underground Railroad. There is no haunting, there's no anything ghost. It's like some weird Goonies bullshit. Basically, my problem with this is, first off, like, the actions of all the characters, whether adults or children, are not actions that I could put into my norm. They could be somebody else's norm, but they are just definitely not my norm. They're not in my wheelhouse of experience. And the way that all of these characters reacted to any given situation was so just different to me as a conceptual whole that I was unable to like suspend my disbelief enough to get into the story, because it was like, why the fuck would an adult act like that, is basically what my whole experience reading this was. The main protagonist is a boy called Thomas. Yeah, Thomas. And I honestly could not tell if he was 6 years old or 16 years old, or any range in between that. Sometimes his parents would treat him like a very, very young child, and then sometimes his parents would treat him like another adult. And so, like, his age just seemed all over the place. If it was mentioned, I missed it, but I don't think his age was actually mentioned anywhere. The story itself is fairly boring. There's nothing about haunting in here at all. Like, there's a ghost story associated with the house, but there's nothing like hearing noises. I mean, there's like one scene of like hearing noises, which is quickly explained away, and anything that could potentially be ghosty is told in a way where you know it's a human being doing it. Like, there's never a question of, is this a ghost? It's just straight up, it's a human being doing it. Which annoyed me because I wanted a ghost story, right? Then there's like a huge chunk in the middle here that's like the family going to church and walking around town, which did nothing for the plot. It did not forward the plot in any way, shape, or form. It did not add any additional information that I needed to know about the characters. It was just a big chunk of boring everyday life that I did not care about at all. And I'm mad that I had to read it now, once we got to the end of this book. The book did do cool things. Like, first off, this was written in the 1960s, so having a book in the 1960s, a children's book in the 1960s about Black characters, for Black characters, that is awesome. Like, straight up awesome. Giving this book to a child and them becoming more interested in the Underground Railroad, which is a potential thing that could happen, that is potentially awesome. The Underground Railroad had like such a small, tiny little fraction point in this book, so I don't know that kids would actually get interested in the Underground Railroad, but they might. I don't know. Kids are not my forte. Anyway, I ended up giving this 2 stars just because I did not care for the narrative at all, but there's nothing problematic with it, and somebody somewhere might enjoy it. So there you go. I don't have the book over here with me, but I am still working on Black Madness, Mad Blackness. It is very slow going. And then the last thing that I have is Lakewood. That I think is going to be the last novel. I'm not going to read any of the group books just because I only have today and tomorrow left. So I am going to read Lakewood next. The prompt for that one was a trip or a sabbatical, and it's about a girl taking a sabbatical from college to help care for her mother, and she signs up for medical trials to earn extra money. And I think it's commentary on the use of Black bodies for unethical medical trials because of racism. So whites have more power, and it's much harder for Black bodies, or it is much harder for Black people to use the legal system to press charges or to prevent like these horrible things from happening to them, because the legal system doesn't give a shit about you unless you're wealthy and white. So I will check back in when I finish either one of those 2 books. Hello, it is Friday night, and I am officially done with Blackathon. I do need to edit this video, get it up because it goes live tomorrow and it's already over an hour long. So let's get this last clip done and then call it. So all I have left to talk about is the last two books that I finished. The first one being Black Madness, Mad Blackness, and I hope you're ready for me to drop every single buzzword in existence talking about this one. So this is an academic paper on the intersectionality between race and disability. This talks about specifically blackness when it comes to race and multiple varying ranges of disabilities and the erasure of one or the other in any sort of like literature, because you're either black or you're disabled. You're never a black disabled person. Not necessarily even in literature and society as well. This was titled purposefully, where madness can mean a whole lot of different things. It's one of those words in English that has so many different definitions for no obvious reason. First, like, you've got like mad as in angry. You also have mad as in insane, and then there's another use of the word mad that you don't really think about very often, where it's like an extreme. So like, that's mad cool, which is very dated, but still a use of the word. Basically, mad can represent the word, or can replace the word very in that case. This book is broken down into basically an introduction and then 4 chapters or conversations, as she calls it. They're all written in the same vein, where the author introduces a conversation or an argument about black madness, or more specifically race and disability, and then talks about like real life situations where this comes into effect, and then spends a little time metaphorically sucking her colleagues' dicks, because the thing with academic papers is you always quote other academics' papers or essays in like this huge circle jerk thing, where the only way that you're going to get accreditation is by making other people feel intelligent or important by using their work in your work. Yay, academics. So that's how each one of these things start, and then she goes into like literature examples of black madness, because the author is a literature professor, so there is a reason that this all references literature. I will say that she does spoil the plots of 4 separate books. You have Fledgling by Octavia Butler, which that was the only one that I had heard about prior to reading this, and I already knew that I did not want to read it because it has very strong themes of pedophilia, and I don't do that shit. Don't do that shit. Then you have Midnight Robber by Nalo Hopkinson, which I have not heard of, and it didn't particularly sound interesting after reading about it in here. Then you have the African Immortals series by Tananarive Due, which I've heard of that author, but I don't think I've heard of that series, and I didn't, nor do I have any interest in reading it now. And then Hunting in Harlem by Matt Johnson, which sounds a lot like the themes around, or of No One Is Watching, or When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, but I think that When No One Is Watching is probably a better book, so I don't have any interest in reading Matt Johnson's version of that book. I will say, because this is an academic essay, this is dry as shit. The vocabulary used in here is like off the wall SAT level vocabulary, almost like the author like wrote out a sentence, got a thesaurus, and then rewrote the sentence using a lot bigger words. It's just full of like buzzwords. And like I said, for the most part, it's dry. Not that it's not interesting. It does make some really interesting points. I would have just preferred those points being made in a more conversational tone, but it is an academic essay, so it should be written like an academic essay. It was my fault for going in reading an academic essay, thinking that it was anything but an academic essay. I did highlight, as you can see by my tabs, a couple of quotes that I thought were interesting. This first one talks about the United States Census and racism within the Census Bureau. So the United States Census of 1840 was the first to provide statistics about mental illness. The faulty statistics counted a high incidence of madness among blacks in the North at numbers that far exceeded the amount of black people, full stop. This pseudoscientific evidence not only aggravated madness to blackness generally, but also provided punitive proof that blacks were unfit for freedom, claiming that free blacks were 11 times more likely to have mental illness than enslaved or white populations. Now, that used a lot of big words. That one actually wasn't as bad of sentence as some of the other ones were, but that's basically saying that there was a census in 1840 that said there were more mentally disabled black people than there were black people. And then tried to use this obviously faulty and false data to say that black people should remain enslaved because free black people are 11 times more likely to be mentally disabled than a enslaved black person or a white person. And I just thought that was a very interesting statistic. All of these things in here, this is academic, so every single statement she makes is backed up by research. It's all listed for pages and pages in the back. I'm not going to give you sources here. In a conversation too, she does mention something that is an event that I've learned about within like the past year, and I'm interested in reading more literature about it. So if you guys have any recommendations about how the medical field tends to underestimate black women's pain, where there are a lot more deaths in childbirth and just a lot more harm to black women, because for some fucking reason medicine has decided that black women don't feel as much pain as other people. And I want to do more like learning, not research, but I want to learn more about like where the fuck that came from, because I keep hearing it repeated, but I don't know where that kind of started. Another very interesting bit in this book was talking about like normality or normalcy. So what is normal is a question that people often ask themselves, and turns out normal has been defined, and the definition for normal is hilarious. Normal is white, male, cisgendered, straight, able-bodied, and Protestant. So if you are not all of those things, congratulations, you are not normal. Additionally speaking, that actual subset group is a very, very, very small portion of society to be considered normal. And yeah, that was just funny to me. Anyway, the conversations that are talked about in this book are important and interesting. I just don't think that this was the best way for me to consume those conversations, because I am not an academic. So it was just really dry. The other book that I read was a... Shut up, bitch. The other book that I read was an ebook. So cover is going to be here in a second. It was Lakewood by Megan Giddings, and this was a very interesting book. So what is this? This is about a young Black woman. She's in her early 20s, I would say. She's in college. She's either a sophomore or a junior. I wasn't entirely sure. But she grew up with her very, very ill mother and a grandmother. She does not know who her father is. She doesn't have a grandfather or any siblings or anything. It is just those three women in her family. Her grandmother has, at the very beginning of the book, just died of cancer. And like I said, her mother is very ill. Her mother has had seizures her entire life and has like debilitating migraines. So we get into this book where the main character, Lena, I think is her name, Lena. The main character's name is Lena, and she is struggling because her mother, because of her illnesses, can't hold down a full-time job, and Lena is kind of like dealing with the fact that her mother has endless amounts of medical bills and then her grandmother's medical bills. And so she's decided that she needs to at least temporarily drop out of college so she can pay like basic bills like food, housing, electricity, try to help with her mother's medical bills as best she can. And she's looking around for jobs. She is willing to take like multiple part-time jobs that pay minimum wage because that's really all she can get. She has a high school diploma and that's it. She has no job experience, nothing to really get anything that's going to make any meaningful money. And again, as I said, her mother cannot work because of her seizures and her migraines. So she comes across this opportunity to get paid a lot of money to do medical studies for the government. And this is like $3,000 a week starting. The studies are supposed to be about like brain function and memories. And she goes into these appointments to like find out if she's a good candidate for these studies, and holy shit, this is shady. It's so shady. And this is one of the things that I normally don't like in books, where the characters will do things that is like so far out of reality for decisions that I would make. It makes it very hard for me to enjoy the book because I'm just like, why would you do that? Like, can you not see all of these red flags? This book explained it in a way where I could actually get into the book. Like, she knew there were red flags, but she also was struggling so much for money and how shitty America treats its poor that she's like, I don't see another choice. Like, I don't want to do this. I see these red flags, but this is like the best opportunity I have to make any sort of decent amount of money. And it follows her through these clinical trials, which, oh my God. The things that happen to these people in these clinical trials are horrific. And it goes through like all of these conversations that you see in the media about treating Black bodies as subhuman and how people don't care about, and how like government, specifically the US government, doesn't give a shit about the poor, like why we need socialized medical care. And Poisonings of water supplies like Flint, Michigan, is even kind of like hinted at. Like obviously this takes place in Lakewood, not Flint, but you see the parallels to things that actually happen in reality. And putting those situations in like this horror-like novel makes the horror of the novel and the horror of the real life situations all the more like terrifying because you can draw those parallels. And I think a lot of the books that I've been reading that this week do that, where you have like the parallels between things that you actually see on the news that happen in real life and things that are happening in these horror novels. And I think that is like the most interesting, I wanted to say coolest, but it's not cool because it's bad, but it's the most interesting thing about like black horror and thriller genres, is that it's terrifying because these things really fucking happen. But I don't want to ruin this book because I actually highly recommend it for people, just for like it's not like jump scares, and it wasn't nearly as terrifying as When No One Is Watching that I read earlier, but it's like surreal, and it's kind of like a surrealist type of terrifying. It was very interesting, very well told. I enjoyed it a lot. It's a 4-star, not a 5-star, because I didn't think it was perfect, but I really did enjoy it, and it's very short, so very easy to get through. So if body horror, that's the word I'm looking for. If body horror is your thing, I would recommend reading this book. If you can't deal with body horror, then maybe steer away from this one, because the body horror in this is like real. It'll make your insides squirm a little bit and your skin crawl. But overall, I very, very much enjoyed it, and I do recommend it. So that concludes everything that I've read for Blackathon. This video is already super long, so I'm not gonna waste your time going through every single book that I already read or talking about anything that happened this week. I am just going to peace out here. I will catch you in the next video. Bye!